settle in, get cozy, let's pick my January TBR. Hello everyone, my name is Reagan and welcome to today's video. Today we are going to be doing my TBR for January using my TBR jar. I recently did a refresh of this TBR jar, so we have not new and improved prompts, but we've definitely cleared some out. So we are going to be picking, I want to say 7 books to be on my January TBR. Now, I have the philosophy that anything I pick is just an option, but these are the books that maybe I want to be focusing on. I mainly do these videos because I love picking from my TBR jar and doing a TBR for the month. However, will I stick to it? I've never completed a TBR. Maybe that should be my goal this month in January, to complete a TBR, but no promises. We are just going to pick the books and see what happens. I unfortunately have been growing my TBR a lot recently, and I say unfortunately meaning I've been trying to keep my TBR down in order to fit on this cart just one row facing forward. I want that to be my entire physical TBR. Now, that is not the case at the moment. Right now, I have 56 books on my TBR, and I have 2 TBR shelves on my bookshelf, not on my cart. We are really trying to focus on my physical TBR. That is the goal. And I really want to read all of the books that I have on my physical TBR. However, do I have the time? That is always the question. We're just going to get into the video. We have 7 prompts to pick, and I have some books that I have in mind that I would really like to get to in January. However, we will see what the TBR jar gods give us today. As always, we're doing a little bit of ASMR here for picking my prompts. Love a good ASMR TBR jar. So the first prompt is a book you do not know the plot of. This is going to be quite easy for me because I tend to not know the plot of a lot of books that happen upon my TBR. I can really just pick almost anything on my shelf. I'm going to have a look-sees, come back and give you some options, and then we will narrow them down. We have quite the stack here, so let me go through and tell you about what I'm kind of thinking for this prompt. I also have one book that is not in this physical stack. It's because it is arriving today, and it is a part of a video idea that I have for January. So it is a strong contender for the book I don't know the plot of, because I don't know the plot of it. I know something else about it that I'm not going to give away because it gives away the video, but Witchcraft of Wayward Girls, I think, is the title, by Grady Hendrix. This was recommended to me by one of my friends. She adored this book, and it is technically, I think, horror. So I'm trying to get into the horror genre this year. I feel like I could really love it, and I literally don't know anything about what this book is about. I'm assuming that it's probably something to do with witches. I know, crazy guess there. Other than that, I'm not totally sure what it's about, so very strong contender for this prompt. The second book I have on here, The Jasad Heir by Sarah Hashim. This I bought because I saw Heather McLary talk about it. She loved this book, and apparently he wears eyeliner. The MMC wears eyeliner. From that point forward, I was hooked. I bought this from one of the local independent bookstores around me. I can link it down in the description below if you are in the Raleigh area. Totally recommend. I have literally no idea what it's about. I know that it's a fantasy, and it's kind of like an Egyptian-inspired fantasy. Maybe I could be getting that wrong as well. This wasn't a top contender for this prompt. However, now that I'm looking at it, I'm kind of like, ooh, I kind of really want to read it. The cover is really wowing me. We have The Wolf and the Woodsman by Ava Reid. This is another book I bought actually at that same independent bookstore, I think during the same trip, if I'm being quite honest. This book is absolutely stunning. I've been really wanting to read this one ever since I bought it, and I literally know nothing about it. The cover and the design and the naked hardback and the inside of the dust jacket really sold me here, so I could not tell you a single plot point, again, other than I assume that it has to do with a wolf and a woodsman. This is also a strong contender. I'm looking at all these books and I'm like, wow, I want to read all of them. So I'm gonna have quite a hard time choosing. Next, I have Of Faith in Flame by Cece Tyler. This is a book that I picked up, an indie published book that I picked up at a book fair, and the author was very kind and signed our copies. And we also got a pack of fan art, and really the fan art is kind of what drew me in. She had the pictures at the table, and I was like, ooh, what is that for? What fan art is that for? And she was like, oh, it's this book. And I was like, I'm sold, give it to me. I was sold on the fan art, so I literally have no idea what it's about. about other than what the characters potentially look like. This book is one of my most recent purchases. Fallen Gods by Rachel Van Deeken. I've definitely read the blurb before, so maybe I know a little bit more. I know that it's gods and giants, which it also says something about that on the cover, but I know a little bit more about what the plot is of the book than probably all the other ones in my pile. Again, very, very stunning edition of this book. I mean, come on, another purchase where I was really just sold by the book and its aesthetic. So I have very little knowledge of what goes on inside this book, what people think. All I know is it's beautiful and I'm interested in it. Last choice for this prompt is Not Quite Dead by Holly Jackson. This is a thriller by Holly Jackson. That is literally the extent of my knowledge of this book. I really try and go into thrillers quite blind. It helps me with the enjoyment of the book if I don't know the plot, because I'm not guessing as to where it's going. The one thing I do know about this book is it probably has something to do with like brain trauma, just because of the end pages. I really want to read this, and it's another book that's part of the video idea I have. I'm pretty sure I'm between The Witchcraft of Wayward Girls and probably The Jasad Era as my second choice. I'm not totally sure which one I want to go with. I think I'm gonna go with Witchcraft for Wayward Girls just because I have the video idea and it's something that I want to read in January. So I think I'm probably going to end up going with that. However, if I get the chance to put this on my TBR with another prompt, I will be taking it because I am quite excited for this book, and holding it in my hands is really making me want to pick it up. Every once in a while, I need to just go around and touch the books on my bookshelves because holding a book makes me want to pick it up. I could be reading this right now and it feels so satisfying in my hands. So this is a strong contender for another prompt if possible. First book on the TBR, The Witchcraft of Wayward Girls, or whatever that title is, by Grady Hendrix. We're gonna move on to our second prompt of the video. Prompt number 2, a book with a person on the cover. I need to take a look-see at my shelves again because I know a few off the top of my head, but I don't know if all of the few that I'm thinking of are books I'm interested in reading this month, so we might have to do a little bit of finagling. I have another quite hefty stack here of books that we have as options. I really thought there was less books that I had with people on the cover than these. There are a few Jessa books that I didn't include that do have people on the cover. I just am really not in the mood for a Jessa this month. Let's go through these books and see what I'm kind of feeling for the month. Alchemy of Secrets by Stephanie Garber, the person, the woman right there. Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid, quite obviously person on the cover. My Friends by Frederick Bachman, again, some people on the cover, but it doesn't show their faces, so we could maybe rule this one out. It's a little bit ambiguous. Same for The Compound by Aisling Rawl. This has 2 people on the cover, but neither of them are the front image of the book. They're just kind of there. However, I'm really interested to read this book. Going back to The Wolf and the Woodsman by Ava Reed, we also have 2 people on the cover here, very strong contender. And then finally, Terror at the Gates by Scarlett St. Clair. I've been hearing a lot of good chatter about this book, so another very strong contender, also beautiful edition. Spreading these books out in front of me, looking at them, I'm going to put back My Friends by Frederick Bachman. It doesn't have as many people on the cover, also looking very summery. We're also going to put back Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. There's a special circumstance under which I would like to read this, and it hasn't arisen yet. I would really love to read The Compound, but I don't think it's the strongest contender for a person on the cover. Very surprisingly, I've kind of been strongly drawn to Alchemy of Secrets by Stephanie Garber. This isn't one that I was originally like, ooh, when I picked this prompt, that's what my mind went to. But I was looking through my shelves and I saw this and I was like, wait, I had meant to read this back in December, I think it was, or not my December TBR, maybe my November. Another super gorgeous edition, by the way. Having this book in my hands has really drawn me to it and made me want to read it. I guess like I'm sensing their aura, their vibe, their feeling in my hand. Like sometimes just touching a book is like, ooh, I want to read that really bad. So I think I'm low-key going to put Alchemy of Secrets by Stephanie Garber on my TBR this month because for some reason it's really drawing me in. Second book on the TBR. Prompt number 3, a book you previously soft DNF'd. I'm gonna have to do some thinking about this one because I don't often soft DNF books. There could be something on here, so let me take a look and see what I'm kind of recalling about my past and previous soft DNF history. It appears, based on my research and my looking at my shelves, that Phantasma is the only book that I've soft DNF'd that I currently have still on my TBR. So it's kind of the only option for this prompt, which tends to happen to me. I feel I pick a prompt and I'm like, I I only have one option for this, which makes it clear that when I was writing the prompt, I had something in mind. So I guess Phantasma is the third book on the TBR. Oh, a book with a shirtless man on the cover. Uh-oh. This might be one I have to turn to my Kindle library for because I don't know. Here's what I'm thinking. If a book has like an edition that was made with a shirtless man on the cover, I can use it. Like I don't have to have the current edition because I know right now there's no books with shirtless men on the cover. So I might need to be doing some research. Okay, I've come up with 3 options here that are possible. Some of them are a little bit of a stretch, to be quite honest. The first option, I know that in my Kindle library, I have this book saved and it has a shirtless man on the cover. This is the new cover and the new edition with the sprayed edges. This is The Stopover by T.L. Swain. This is a book my sister bought and read and then gave to me because whenever she finishes reading a book, she's like, I don't want it in my room, so I get them. And it's one that I've contemplated reading, and if I start it and I hate it, I'm gonna give it away or give it back to her to sell. This is a potential option. I don't have any explicitly romance things on the TBR, so this could be a good situation to have. This is the one that has the most shirtless man on the cover, like the most plausible book to match the prompt. A False Start by Elsie Silver. The previous cover of this used to have a shirtless man. I'm like, actually, I might be wrong. I know that all of the Chestnut Spring series did, but I don't know if this one did. I actually can't verify this, so this might have to be going back on the TBR because I'm not totally sure that I'm right about this one, which is a shame because that would have been checking off a series. However, female fantasy is our last option here. It has a shirtless merman on the cover, if you can see that. It is a cartoon, so it's not a real man, but this is my book club's book pick for, we kind of don't really have timelines. We just pick one, and then when most of the people read it, we meet. So this is our next book club pick, but I think if we're comparing the two based on the prompt, this follows the prompt a lot better than this one, which means I might have to be going with The Stopover. 4th book on the TBR, a book with the shirtless man on the cover. I will put the edition up on the screen that I'm thinking of. I'm like 99% positive that there's an edition of this book, The Shirtless Man on the cover. I rest my case. Fifth prompt, a book with silver on the cover. I'm gonna have to do some searching. I've come up with 4 options here and none of them are decisively the most silver. So we're going to go through all 4 of them and then I'm going to deliberate based on which one I want to read the most because they're all pretty silver toned. First, we have this beautiful Barnes & Noble's collector edition of When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. A very silvery color palette on the outside of the book with gold detailing. So I'm not totally sure if this is the best match for the prompt, but it's an option. Nocticadia by Carrie Lake. We have the silver skull and we have the silver wings on the butterflies and the lettering down here. This is again not the most silver tone, but it's as close as I could get. I really do want to read this book and I got an edition with the beautiful sprayed edges. Reign of Shadows and Endings by Melissa K. Rorich. This is the first book in the Legacy series and we have some silver in the lettering. We just have some silver little specks and some silver tones in this mirror right here with the little shatter. Again, not the most silver, but a contender. And I also have Fairy Tale by Veronica Lansett. This has a bunch of silver lettering here and then a very silver color palette in general. So again, none of them are decisively the most silver, but we have quite a few options here that we could go with. I'm gonna lay them all out in front of me again and kind of see which one I'm feeling. I feel that I can probably put back When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. I think it's the least silver out of all of these. I'm kind of most leaning toward Reign of Shadows and Endings by Melissa K. Rorich. I've just been really craving reading this book recently and I think it's kind of the one that I want to go with just in simply like my want to read it. I want to read the other 2, but I think I want to read this one the most right now. So I think I'm gonna put Reign of Shadows and Endings by Melissa K. Rorich on the TBR as book number 5. Last prompt, let's pick it together. Last prompt, a book you've been putting off. This could mean so many things. I'm gonna have a look-see at my shelf again. I've come up with 3 options that I feel like I've really been avoiding. Like I keep putting it on my TBR. I really want to read it, but I just haven't done it because I'm scared. That's kind of the vibe of what's going on. And here are these 3 books. So first we have the first book in the Zodiac Academy series. I've been putting off because I fear that this will rule my life. And I have so many books on my TBR that I want to get to, but I fear that when I read this, I'm going to just want to buy each book and keep reading them. So I've been putting it off because I have a fear of enjoying it too much. However, I think that fear is still outweighing my desire to read it at the moment, so that might not be what we pick. Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. I have a signed edition of this, which I feel so incredibly lucky to have. This book, I really just do feel that I'm going to enjoy it so much, and I also want to listen to the audiobook, which is why I've been putting it off, because I've heard the audiobook is absolutely stunning. I've kind of been putting it off, waiting to see when my hold will come in the library for this book, because I really wanted to read it. Last book I've been putting off, this brick of a book, Alchemized by Sin Yu. These pages are actually like Bible thin, but I read Manacled last year, which I had been putting off, and I feel like it would be appropriate for me to read Alchemized at the beginning of this year, because then I can no longer put it off. And I'm really excited to read it because I've seen a lot of people like Maddie and Laura read this quite recently, and they absolutely adored it. So I'm really hoping I'll adore this more than Manacled, because Manacled was okay to me, but I think I'm gonna like this better. I am quite scared of how much time this is gonna take me. It is 1,000 pages, and that is absolutely insane. I'm also quite scared for the emotional devastation, but I think this is the book. I literally am laughing at myself while I say this because I'm insane. This is the book, the final book that we are putting on my January TBR. Let us do a quick recap, shall we, of all the books that we are putting on my January TBR, a total of 6 books. First, for a book you don't know the plot of, Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. For a book with a person on the cover, Alchemy of Secrets by Stephanie Gerber. For a book you've previously soft DNF'd, Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. For a book with the shirtless man on the cover, The Stopover by T.L. Swain. For a book with silver on the cover, Reign of Shadows and Endings by Melissa K. Rorich. Somebody let me know if I'm saying that name wrong. And finally, for a book that you've been putting off, Alchemized by Sin Yu. These are all the books that are on my January TBR. Stay tuned for my January wrap up to see if I finish all of these books and complete my TBR for the first time ever. Fingers crossed. I hope you had an amazing holiday season. Thank you so much for watching. I can't wait for all of the beginning of year content that's coming up. Check out my Etsy in the description below. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for being here. I love you all to death. Thank you for 900. Bye.